we humans created calendars. We created time. This is not a universal thing, right? It's a man-made thing. We're living in a matrix. We're living in a creation, a collective combined game, and we created structures to support it. So it's not that time isn't real. It is, but it is not real at the same time. Remember, everything in the quantum field is both. It's never one or the other.
Hello, my loves. This is Johanna Burkhardt. I am a multidimensional channel, teacher, healer, and author. And I am obsessed with all things metaphysical, esoteric, galactic, and of course, the healing journey. And I'm here to share my stories, my wisdom, and my teachings about being human in the illusion that we call reality. Welcome to Cosmic Blonde.
Hello, my loves. Today we're going to be talking about timeline shifts and kind of I don't know, I don't want to call it an energy update because for those that have been with me for a long time, you know, I did energy updates weekly, sometimes, and definitely monthly, but I used to do them all the time. And over the last year and a half, I have stopped doing them, and there's good reason for that. However, that's kind of how this episode's going to go. Not necessarily an energy update, but I am going to talk about the energy and kind of what I'm feeling as of this moment. And I have to say this as a disclaimer, and this is the real reason why I have stopped doing energy updates or energy forecasts. Let me change that to an energy forecast, because I can update you on something that's already happened. But energy forecasting, the reason is because we literally can vote. I'm going to say unconsciously. It's a vote at a soul level. We vote collectively at a soul level if we're going to speed up or slow down, and what direction we're going to take, what timeline we're going to choose. It's not just a personal thing. There is personal timelines. There is personal choices. There's personal directions we go in. A lot of us are living in different frequencies amongst each other, but collectively, we're also having a collective experience. So everything you do, everything you say, however you behave, is your contribution to the collective energy. And this is why it is the thing that I've been saying forever is be the change, because that is all you have to do technically, is be the change you want to see in the world. Because how you act, how you speak, how you behave is your contribution to the collective frequency on the planet. And that's huge. Like, just that piece alone is huge for you really to anchor into. Because I get a lot of people who will, just on a side note, will say, like, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Well, start with just being the change you want to see. Look at what's happening in the world, what triggers you and other people, what triggers you in the world, and say, if I could change this, if I could be any different, if the world was any different, how would we behave? And then go and do that. If you just did that, you would be living a beautiful purpose. And so that's why I have to kind of put this disclaimer that whatever I'm about to say can shift and change, but I really was not going to talk about this. And as I was sitting preparing to record, I just had this overwhelming feeling like this is what we're going to be talking about. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what to say, so it's got to come through, right? And so here we are. And so that's why I'm going to go with it. I'm going to follow that feeling as I talk about and just lean in and trust the process. I did a energy forecast or update, a reel, just a very short 1-minute reel a few weeks ago. And I said that the energy of November was more like December, meaning it felt like the calendar year was ending in November and not December. And it was a weird thing for me to even say. And I know that people would be like, what? But we have to remember we're following a Gregorian calendar. There's a Mayan calendar. There's so many different calendars. Like, we humans created calendars. We created time. This is not a a universal thing, right? It's a man-made thing. We're living in a matrix. We're living in a creation, a collective combined game, and we created structures to support it. So it's not that time isn't real. It is, but it is not real at the same time. Remember, everything in the quantum field is both. It's never one or the other. It's both, you know, there's both is true. And so anyway, November felt like this wrap up of the year. But again, and I talked about this in my last episode, this energy of finality. Everything is final. And November felt that way. It felt like there was big decisions and big shifts, whether it be a belief system, a habit, a move, a job, a relationship, relationships with other people, that there was these big decisions that people were going to have to make, that were going to place them on the proper trajectory to align with the most optimal frequency for what's coming next. And for those that followed that feeling, that followed that knowing and kind of went with it, even if it was, you know, abrupt or chaotic or hard or challenging or, you know, emotional, whatever the case may be, right? Even exciting, they went with it. Those who didn't do that, this is where suffering comes in, because you're fighting with it. It's sucking you down. And so there was also, you know, in September and October and a good part of November, there was also this looping that was going to be happening and did happen. I mean, I looped, and I can say that, you know, people are like, oh, you didn't move right into the next frequency. No, I looped. And what looping is when you are at a crossroads of a decision, crossroads of a behavior, of a reaction or response, any of those things, and you choose a familiar hell, for lack of a better way to say it. You choose something that, even if it's dressed a little bit differently, you're like, oh, it's different this time. I'm different. The reason why it's different is because I'm different. Especially, and I have to say this, in relationship, if it has to do with a relationship, and this can also happen in business too, or employment, anything that involves more than you, just because you change doesn't mean everything changes. It means you changed. And so you may no longer respond to the disrespect the same way. You may have stronger boundaries and no longer tolerate things. But if you go into a situation and we're like, well, it's not the same because I changed, it is the same. The pattern is going to stay the same. You're probably just going to have a lot more clarity this time around. So when you're faced at a crossroads and you justify doing the same thing again, or justify anything, honestly, justification should be a red flag to you. Anytime you're justifying something, you're making excuses to stay in something that is not aligned for you. So if you ever find yourself justifying, that should be a alarm bell for yourself. So anyway, I talked about in my last episode how I chose and I accepted an opportunity that I knew deep down was not aligned for me. I looped. That was me looping. And it wasn't a waste. I learned a lot. I gained a lot. There was lessons that were there for me, but because I had a kind of a feeling that this was not the right thing, I was very observant and I didn't react. I responded. I was very proud of myself, actually. If anything, it showed me how much I've evolved. It showed me how much I had grown because of the way that I responded to the things that happened and went down. And I was very proud of that. So to me, it wasn't a waste. And that's why I always say, just because you repeat a cycle or a pattern, don't beat yourself up about it. Don't shame yourself. Like, it needed to happen. There was something more you needed to learn so that then you could move to the next frequency, so that you could move to the next highest timeline, or however you want to perceive it. And so it's really important for us to understand that. And that's what this energy was from September, October, and part of November, was this opportunity for you to repeatedly hit that crossroads and choose before we all move into this new frequency. Some of us, and we'll call that gating or crossing a threshold or convergence. That's the word they want me to use, convergence. So we're coming up on this convergence. This convergence is going to start in December. And December is the beginning. It's the beginning of the new way of living. And even though those words just came out of my mouth, I don't even, my ego's like, what does that mean? I'm not sure. But what I am feeling, what is coming through is this convergence is the beginning of the new way that we will be living. Now, with that, there is going to be a continued breakdown. There's going to be, it's not all going to be peaches and cream from December on out. Anytime we're building something new, problems arise, delays arise, things go, right? And sometimes there's further demo that is needed. So, but it's going to be the beginning of the new. And so that means anything remaining that needs to be seen, revealed, torn down, blown up, whatever the case, it's going to happen in 2024. 2024 is going to be a very interesting year. A very interesting year. There's going to be some amazing things that happens. There's going to be some amazing discoveries that that have been done over the last couple of years. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that this time during the pandemic, it wasn't necessarily wasted. There was a lot of medical discoveries. There was a lot of scientific discoveries. There was a lot revealed. How can we say this? There was a lot of truths revealed about who we actually are. And a lot of that was revealed on the government websites. They're not going to come out in the news and tell you, but if you watch any sort of TV, I don't watch a ton of TV, but when I do, what I've noticed, I don't know, please tell me in the comments if anybody else has noticed this. But even like yesterday or the day before, I was watching a Hallmark movie because this time of year, I'm a Christmas fiend. I love me some Hallmark Christmas movies. But even in there, I heard things like time is an illusion. I heard all kinds of metaphysical terms that would be something that I would speak that is now becoming a mainstream lingo because they're preparing the collective for what's coming. They're preparing us. There's a lot more talk about alien races. There's a lot more talk about other planets. There's a lot more talk about, multiple suns. There's a lot more talk about all of these things because they are preparing us through programming on television, television, so that our consciousness, right, doesn't break. Because if we just unleashed the fact that there's multiple races living amongst us at all times, if we just unleashed the truth about everything, and if you think the government doesn't know, I don't know what to tell you. It's an asinine thought. The government knows there's people in the government that know all of these things, right? I mean, for crying out loud, if you go to the CIA website, there's proof that they have teleported soldiers from one country to another in seconds. Like you have to dig for this shit, but it's there. That energy is free. I mean, Tesla provided and showed and proved that we could harness free energy, but that doesn't make anybody any money, right? So everything is all about following the dollar bill. So we don't want to get political here. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. We're going to come back to this flow, but I needed to say that for my own sanity. My point is, as I get back into the flow of consciousness, these things are happening and being put back into mainstream because it's helping to prepare people's minds. Because if it all unlocked at the same time, if everything broke, right? If we went through 3 days of emergency broadcasting where all the truth was revealed, it would break people. It would break their egos. And while that's not always a bad thing, it can be if you're not ready for it. This is why I say, like, going to do plant medicine when you're not ready for it, not always a good thing, because it's going to break your fucking ego. It's going to break your mind. When I say your ego, I mean your mind. And I am very self-aware, very self-aware. I'm sure there's people that are more self-aware than me, but I'm very self-aware. And when I did ayahuasca, it broke my mind. What was left of my mind was shattered. And I have talked about this before, so I'm not going to go down it. It's no different. When you have no choice but to see the truth, it can be very disturbing. It can actually make you go crazy. It can be a bad thing. And so the way around that is through programming on television, on radio, on advertisements, on social media. We create these things. And so now when I scroll and I see some of these things, people are unfazed by it. And so that's the point, is to repetitively introduce these words, these concepts, and get people comfortable. Because when it shows up, it's still going to create a bit of a shock and awe, but it does need to happen slowly. And that's why I always remind people, when things are going bad, when things aren't happening in the world as fast as they'd like it to. I mean, I'm one of those people too. It's like a reminder, like, it has to happen at a reasonable pace. And so collectively, this is why our souls vote on how fast or slow we go. Sometimes this has been the pattern for the last couple of years. It's been like, we go really fast, and then it's like, stop, we gotta stay here for a little while. And so everything kind of stops and pauses. And then we start going really fast again, because it's almost like we were like, whoa, let's go. And it's like, whoa, we didn't know it was going to be this much. And we kind of have to stop and integrate and digest all the shit that we just saw, all the shit that we just went through. And so that is really important concept to understand why we feel this. And this is another reason why I stopped doing energy forecasts, was because I would have these overwhelming feelings that things were going to happen. And we would come right up to the timeline, and then collectively we would vote, and it would shift, and we'd either slow down or we would jump, and we would collapse a complete timeline, and it didn't quite happen. Or the things that I was feeling happening were happening, but they were happening behind the scenes, and you can't see them. There was no validation in it. And while I don't necessarily need to be validated, it wasn't something that I no longer needed to put out into the public, because we are, again, the required to learn how to live in faith, live in a state of uncertainty, in predictability, and come back to the understanding that we are each God, and that we only have to have belief in ourselves and our power. This is where we individually learn to stand, to take, not only, it's not really taking back your power, it's just owning your power. Quit giving your shit away. Quit giving your power away to the government. Quit giving your power away to your family members. Quit giving your power away to anything. It's not reclaiming it. You don't have to take it back. Nobody has it. You just have to quit giving it away. Your power just automatically regenerates, unless you burn yourself out. And I've been there. So then you have to rest and you're down for the count for a while, but that's neither here nor there. My point is this is the time when we have to learn. If you haven't already, you're going to get a real crash course in it coming up, on how to believe in yourself and believe in your abilities to figure shit out. You only got to believe in you. That's it. That's it. So if you don't know how to believe in yourself, you don't know how to live in a state of uncertainty without things that give you that false security. I mean, please go to my website, book a session. I will help you. Or find someone that you align with and go get some assistance. Read a book, meditate, do something to start putting yourself on that track to be able to stand in that. And let me tell you, my nomadic journey, that was the hard way. It just was. It was fun, but it was hard. But it was the shortcut, because now, gosh, it feels strange, but I feel so confident to say that I believe in myself. I'm so confident in the fact that I can say I believe in myself. I believe that no matter what happens, I will be okay. I believe that no matter what happens, it will work out. And that's been tested over and over and over again over the last 3 years. And I'm still standing, and I'm still smiling, and I'm still living my best life. So I'm living proof that you can do whatever you want to do for the most part without the things that you think you need. I did not have the resources to be a nomad. I did not have the vehicle that most people do to be a nomad. I did not have the resources to travel and to live the lifestyle that I have the last 3 years, but I did it anyway because I trusted. Sometimes I did it scared shitless with wobbly faith, but I did it anyway. This is your goal. This is what you need to make your priority. So 24, starting in December, is when we energetically are going to start 2024. And it's going to start out a little slow, feeling like it's still a new beginning, right? But by the end of December, you're really going to feel that new beginning, like that you kind of anchored into a new beginning. And things are going to start to shift and unfold, and the world is going to shift and unfold. And it's not always going to be pleasant what we see or what we feel. But they're assuring me to have faith that it's all happening for us because we have chosen this life, this time. The people that are here, we have chosen this life, this time for a reason. This is a very pivotal time in the evolution of consciousness. It just is. So we're not going to get into, and they're not giving me specifics about what we're going to see in 2024, other than the fact that we're not always going to like what we see. And it's not always going to be pleasant, but it's preparing us. This is kind of like the space between when the rebuilding begins. And so there's a range of time when we're really going to physically see the rebuilding. So I think by 2027, we will really start to physically see the manifestation of the new being built. And by new, I hate to use the term new world, but it will be a new world. It'll be a new way of living in this world is a better way to say it. But in 25, I mean, really in 24, it begins, but 24 is kind of like the space between. It's the space between we've been preparing for years for the new to be built. Since actually before 2020, this has been happening for quite some time. They're pulling me, they're saying 2018 was a pivotal year, 2008 was a pivotal year, 2012 was a pivotal year. There's certain markers where we had pivotal shifts and benchmarks, right? It's like we're kind of benchmarking our way to the space of where we're wanting to be because it's such a collective shift. It's not just one person, right? It's so many people. So there's so many factors that go into how fast or slow we move or how fast or slow everything unfolds. So anyway, 24 is kind of the space between. It's the cleanup and the final prep for the building of the new way of living is going to emerge. And so we'll really start to feel that in 25. And we may even see sparks of manifestations of it in 25 and 26, but 27 is when we're really going to see it. I also feel that around that time, between 27 and 2030, is when we're really going to start to see more, I don't want to say aliens, because I think we're all aliens, but other races. We'll have more introduction to them living amongst us. I think it will be starting to slowly become a more okay thing. And the vision they always show me, and I don't know if by 2030 we're going to have this or not, I'm not going to say that, but the vision they always show me is like Men in Black, where they're walking around and they can see all the different races among us. That's the thing. Like a lot of these movies are built on premises of real things. It's not that just because we can't see it, it's not there. You can't see your loved one who's passed away. I mean, some of us can, but Not everybody can see their loved ones or dead people that have passed away, yet they're standing right next to us. Like today, leaving the gym, my dad was talking away to me and I could clearly hear him, right? Sometimes I can clearly see people's loved ones. Sometimes I can clearly see my own loved ones. But again, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. But when you arrive at that frequency, when your consciousness steps into that frequency, all of a sudden you can see them. So people who are sensitive, people who are awake, aware, whatever term you want to call it, that their extrasensory abilities, they're now living at a frequency internally where their extrasensory abilities are able to allow them to see, hear, feel, see, know, sense things that the human eye can't necessarily see or other people can't necessarily experience. Think about that on a collective level, right? So in Men in Black, they are able to see whatever that happens to them. I don't remember the movie, but I remember seeing them walking around in their suits and multiple alien races walking around amongst them. That's happening. We just can't see it. And so slowly, that is the trajectory that we're going on, where we're coming back into a unity consciousness where we can live amongst each other and we'll live much different lives. The way that we work, the way that we community, the way that we do everything will shift and change, but that can't happen all at once. It has to happen in stages. And before the new way can emerge, there has to be a major breakdown of the way that was. So again, when things go awry, when things go bad in the world, it is never a call to fight. It is never a call for violence. It is always a call for unity. It is always a call for community. It is always a call for compassion, for love, for knowing this is happening for a reason. What is the best thing I can do to hold the situation in the highest frequency? If you are fighting the resistance, you're in resistance, right? But if you're like, I'm going to stand for peace and I'm going to hold myself in the frequency of peace and the situation in a sense of peace, I'm not going to react to it. I'm not going to allow my nervous system to get all riled up about what I see is happening. Then your contribution to the collective is an energy of unity, of peace, of community. But if you see what's happening and you get angry or you get triggered or you get in an uproar, okay, one, that's going to tell you something that is not aligned for you anymore. It's going to show you where something doesn't align with you anymore. And instead of reacting, overreacting or reacting, right? You say, okay, what can I do? How can I be the change? That's all you're ever required to do. Maybe you start treating people with a little bit more kindness. Maybe you recognize that we're all going through it. So I was actually going to record today's session about judgment. And so I have this quote that came through one day and I ran it. I probably have 5,000 notes on my iPhone. And so whenever a quote comes through, a statement comes through, or a little blip of a message comes through, I put it in my notes. And so this one stood out. You should never judge the path that another has walked, for you have never stepped in their shoes. And you should pray hard that you never have to. We are all digesting and navigating these shifts and changes in our own way. And we don't know what each person has been through in addition to that in their life, just as they don't know for us. And so we should live from a state of compassion and kindness and openness to hear their opinions, to hear their point of view, not because you have to agree with them, but it's going to tell you where they are in their evolution. And you can choose to have compassion for them. You can choose to say, okay, awesome, and just recognize that that's where they are. Acceptance is not agreement. You just have to accept that's where they are. And hearing someone out, that's all we ever want. We all just want to be heard. So as we move forward, I tell you this now, put this out now, because if there's something if you have found yourself at a crossroads, if you're fighting with yourself on a decision, if you're not following the feeling, if something's falling apart in your life, if the world's blowing up, if these new opportunities are coming in, whatever it is, know that it's happening to put you on the trajectory of the highest frequency that's aligned for your soul for where we are collectively going. Know that with certainty. That is what's happening. And you may not see it now, but you will. You will get to the other side of it, and you will be so grateful that that thing happened. And to remind you that 2024 is going to be a year of transition. It is going to be not the easiest year for everybody. And for those of us who have been through it, who have been practicing for this time over the last few years, who have kind of, we call them the way showers, the ones that go first, like myself. If you feel that that's you, know that you have a due diligence. You have a due diligence to hold the highest frequency. You have the due diligence to be the change and show the way, not to convince other people to do it, not to convince other people to be like you, not to tell them where they're doing wrong, not to fix them, but to be the change, to be the example. Even if you're the only one, even if they don't agree, even if they think what you're doing is crazy, it doesn't matter. You're not crazy. You're just going against the norm. You're not doing what the crowd is doing. You're blazing a new trail. Be there to be the example and to help those who come to you and want help. And know that we are on the right path, that we are getting there. But when we have mass convergence, we have a lot of loss. And so how that loss is going to show up for each of us is going to be a very individual experience. But at the same time, we're all having it at some level. So remember that. You're not alone. We're in this together. We just don't all show it and share it. But it is happening. And this is a major convergence point. And we've had several. At the 80s, I don't remember the exact year, but the 80s was one of the first really big convergence. So we're coming up on another one. And it's going to be interesting. But we got this. The guides feel complete. So we will wrap this up. And I would love to hear your thoughts about what you've experienced from anything that I have talked about. I would love to hear your thoughts. And again, just a reminder, if you're looking for one thing, what do I need to do to prepare? Believe in yourself. Be able to live in uncertainty and on faith, knowing that you can handle whatever comes your way. That should be your main priority, period. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.
Hey, thanks for listening. This episode was brought to you by JohannaBurkhardt.com, where it's time to defy the limits of your mind and step into your multidimensional mastery. Don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. See you next time.